We're winning almost everywhere, folks. This is going to be Brexit. This is going to be special.
This is one of those make or break moments for the United States. It is in your hands.
Heavy campaigning in the final hours of the U.S. presidential race as Americans head to the polls. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat. Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Donald Trump make the final case for why they should be the next U.S. president as Election Day looms. Following the election from New York, CCTV's Nathan King joins us. And Nathan, it's the final hours of the U.S. presidential election. It's been a long and contentious campaign. What can we expect through tomorrow?
Well, exactly, Anand. I'm actually here outside the Hilton Hotel, not Trump Tower. Why? Because this is the hotel he hopes to basically say, we've won, it's victory. But there's a long way to go before that. The country has to vote. And basically it comes down to, as it usually does in US presidential elections, a few key states. Watch out for where Florida goes in the south. Watch out for where North Carolina goes. Virginia, Ohio, and out west, Colorado, Arizona and Nevada. These are probably the states that will decide whether it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. Now, the polls have Hillary Clinton up by about 3 percentage points nationally, but really it's the polls within the states you have to look at. She has got a break just heading into the election by the FBI saying they're no longer looking into her emails and private server. That had seen Trump's poll numbers surge, but it is a lot closer than we thought it would be back in June 2015 when Donald Trump announced his candidacy. Remember, most people were laughing about it then, but he beat 16 Republicans and has taken the fight to Hillary Clinton in a bare-knuckle, very personal brawl. But it is going to be close, but if history suggests anything, Hillary Clinton has the edge going into the final hours here.
Nathan, of course, this is an election that has consequences outside the United States. Some may argue that the consequences outside are even more important than the ones inside the United States, if you ask the Iraqis or the Afghans. So the world is watching. What's been the international reaction so far?
Yeah, you could ask the Iraqis, the Afghans, the Mexicans as well. Remember, Donald Trump wants to build a big wall on the U.S. southern border to stop the flow of immigrants. He wants to tear up the NAFTA trade agreement, the North American Free Trade Agreement between Canada and Mexico. He said that he will slap tariffs on China, 35 to 40%, and make allies in NATO and in Asia pay more for their defense, even suggesting perhaps allowing them to have nuclear weapons. That would be a rapid departure. Hillary Clinton, too, though, considered much more of a hawk than Barack Obama. Remember, she was for the intervention in Libya that saw the ousting of Gaddafi, wanted a no-fly zone in Syria very early on in the civil war. So she, too, could bring a lot of problems in terms of the rest of the world to deal with. This is not a great choice here, say the American electorate. Never have two candidates for president had such high negatives. And you could translate that to the rest of the world.
Thanks, Nathan. That's CCTV's Nathan King reporting from New York City. Joining us now from Texas, Ron Paul is a former U.S. Congressman. He's run for U.S. President 3 times. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Well, you know what it's like. You've run for president before. We're coming to the end of what has been a very bitter election season with 2 candidates who I think it's safe to say are widely disliked across the country. One of them is going to be declared the winner most likely late on Tuesday night or perhaps the day after. Does it matter to you who emerges victorious?
In a mild sort of way, but generally speaking, over the many decades I've been involved in politics, I've come to the conclusion that it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Although the parties argue between themselves, policies never seem to change. They endorse the same economic system, the same foreign policy, the same monetary policy. But there's a lot of argument and debate goes on. but the spending continues, big government rolls on. So I don't expect a lot of changes. But, you know, the two sides can pick little things and say, oh, well, Hillary's better on this and Trump is better on this. But no, I don't expect a lot of difference. I think there's so much momentum going on. I think the momentum of deficit spending and big government, our foreign policy, the monetary policy, and they're really at their end of their ropes. And that's why we've been suffering from a stagnated economy now for 9 years. Because we're at a place where we have to change parties, change our philosophy significantly, and nobody's ready to do that because they haven't quite identified that it's the economic philosophy of the country that's at fault, and it's our foreign policy that's at fault, it's our monetary policies at fault, but that isn't even being considered as far as I'm concerned.
If we look at this election, Donald Trump has tapped into a wellspring of deep resentment and anger among many Americans, people who feel that they've been left behind. And if you look at the other side, the Democrat side, Bernie Sanders, who is also a Democrat contender for president, also tapped into that anger. And in that respect, I guess both of them have something in common. What does that tell you about America today? I mean, who are the people who are so angry, and why are they angry?
Well, I think mostly the people that are angry are the large majority, the middle class, more so than the absolute poor. The poor have income from the government, and a lot of them are very complacent. Most of them won't even be voting. But no, I think it's the middle class, the people who produce and still pay the taxes. But there's a lot of people who are unemployed that are very unhappy too. So it is a sentiment. And they've gotten to the point where they don't trust the government, which I don't think is all that bad, because I think the government doesn't tell the truth all the time on what's going on in the world. They tell us everything is fine and rosy. Unemployment rate is down below 5%, and they never talk about the 94 million people who are not in the workforce anymore. So I think it's economic. I think when people get to the point where they feel like the economy is against them and they're not doing well and they don't understand that. And this has been my whole point. And the biggest thing is the inability to admit that we have too much government spending and there's too much debt, and they don't know what to do with the debt. So everybody's concerned about how you keep this thing going when productivity goes down. So our productivity goes down, the spending goes up, printing money goes up, and we keep digging a hole for ourselves. And quite frankly, I don't think they're hearing the answers for this from either candidate, not any true answers. They dance around it, but I think they're missing the point.
Many analysts and commentators have told us that they fear that what these election campaigns have shown us, have thrown into sharp relief, are the deep divisions in American society, and these divisions are going to be very difficult to heal after the election. Do you believe that to be the case as well?
Yeah, yes, it is, but it's a natural consequence of the system that I'm complaining about. This is an expected event to have a dissension among the middle class and the poor against the very wealthy, because the more money we print, the more debt we run up, the richer the rich get richer. And the money doesn't circulate. The money stays in their pocket, and the stock markets boom, and they're very quite satisfied with it. So this class distinction and class fight is actually, you know, the problem, but it's an economic consequence, but it's turned into racial and social conflicts, and that's why the people are so angry, and they're looking for scapegoats. For instance, well, it's the Chinese fault, it's the Mexicans' fault. Blame somebody else, but never our own policies, and it's our policies that give us trouble. Too much debt, too much spending, too much taxes, too much regulation. That's why we become non-competitive, and we can't say, well, it's somebody else's fault. And I think that's wrong, always blaming somebody else, and for us assuming that we have to sort out every problem in the world, be the policeman of the world, and get involved in internal affairs of many other nations, getting involved in entangling alliances where we have to pay all the bills. The system isn't working, and yet I don't see any reversal coming soon. And certainly there will not be a reversal after this election.
Well, talking about getting involved in other nations, the United States has now been waging a war on terror for something like 15 years. It's destroyed entire countries, cost America dearly in terms of lives and treasure lost, trillions of dollars being spent on these wars. Has it made America safer?
No, we're less safe than ever. I mean, we've been involved, not 15 years, since 1991, when we first went into the Persian Gulf War. we got involved, and since then we've had a presence there. We've literally, our position has been, the neoconservatives are in charge, and they said we have to remake the Middle East. We have to get rid of those bad leaders, those dictators. We have to insist they become all good Democrats and have elections. And as long as they elect the candidate the CIA picks, we're okay. But if they elect somebody we don't like, then we have to go and get rid of him or her. So this is ongoing. We have been way too involved, and the threat of terrorism is really not nearly as great, especially in this country, as they put it out to be. I mean, since in the last 15 years, since 9/11, we've had just a little over 100 people killed by terrorists in this country. But the main reason why they would like to come here and kill us, or they'll kill us when we're over there, is mainly they're sick and tired of us invading their countries and telling them what to do. And I call it blowback, just as the CIA has indicated that's what it is. It's blowback, and people resent it. And that's how they can radicalize a very small number of Muslims to react in a certain way, because they feed on this stuff that we are invading their countries. And I think that, yes, there's a great deal of danger, but we haven't backed off from that policy. And as long as we have this policy, no matter what seems to be a success for us, let's say we are able to, we took over Iraq, got rid of a bad guy, but we created chaos over there and a lot of hatred toward us. So I would say the policy of military interventionism is a source of a great deal of conflict and a problem, and it motivates those individuals to join the radical Muslim movement.
Is it time in the United States for a strong, powerful third party?
Well, I'd like to get a second party because Republicans and Democrats are the same party. Their policy, they argue over who runs the power and who gets to divvy up the loot. But no, they have the same foreign policy, same monetary policy, the same welfare system policy, intervention overseas, that's all the same. But we go around the world telling the world that we're the exceptional nations and you should be like us and have democratic elections. And yet, I ran as a libertarian. It's very, very hard, to get on the ballot. You have to spend a lot of money. You don't get into the debate. So we don't have a very good system. So yes, it would be good to have strong alternatives, but it's not going to come. As a third party candidate, impact was minimal. More impact when I ran as a Republican. I reached a lot more people and offered the message of liberty, reached millions of more people that way. But it's designed that way. It should be changed, but that is an overwhelming task because it involves Republicans and Democrats. They control it. They control the debates, and they control all the legislatures. So they're in bed together when it comes to trying to exclude the representation from an alternative party.
Congressman, thanks for joining us.